Let's bring in trial attorney Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez. He is in New York, and Gabriel, this is a case that a lot of our viewers have been monitoring for so very long. And it's a unique case because Lori is the mom of course, Tylee and JJ, and she says she didn't have anything to do with their murders. The bodies were found on Chad's property. Her brother was the last person at least to be seen with JJ. There are people, aren't there not, that the defense can point the finger to for this jury that, you know, others than Lori Vallow Daybell. And it's for a lot of our viewers that would think, oh, it's a slam dunk case because she's a horrible mom. There's a little bit more to it, is there not, here, now that we're where we're at with opening statements?
Yes, definitely. And if I were the defense too, you want to point the blame at someone else. And there's a lot of interesting characters in this case, and some people that are passed away right now too. So, you know, with this type of case, when there's so much publicity and there's overwhelming evidence against your client, but you have these deranged kind of characters in the case, you're just thinking of any weak spot in the prosecutor's case, anything any sort of reasonable doubt I can pick out in this case, and you know, you might just want to blame it on, you know, someone that's not around anymore. It's easy to blame things on people that have died already. So, you know, I think that's probably what they're going to do here. I'm very interested to see what their opening statement's going to be. When I first heard about the openings were coming up, I'm like, I don't know what are you going to say in your opening statement to outline your case and the evidence, but I have a good feeling that it's pointing the blame at someone else. That's what you do when your back's against the wall. Even in cases where I do a lot of civil litigation and lawsuits for injured clients, defense attorneys, even on the insurance that represent insurance companies, they're always trying to blame someone else. You know, always trying to point the finger at some other person. That's what the jury is going to want. They're going to want to know who did this, and they're going to want to blame. Someone's got to be held accountable for the death of these two children, and the defense has got to point that finger at someone. So the question is, who's going to be?
They do have, you know, Alex Cox is the brother of Lori Vallow Daybell, and he was there every step of the way. He's now dead, and he's been dubbed the family assassin. I mean, the basically people believe that Alex was doing the dirty work for Lori and or Chad, and that does create an opening. But it also, to have a mom not be worried about the whereabouts of her own children and to lie about that, and then to find out that they're dead and to continue to support the person, Chad, where the bodies were found. I mean, there's a lot there. It's just a lot of storytelling. Do you think that for the state of Idaho, they've got a lot to go with in terms of just her behavior? How do you anticipate, and we're just being told the judges just took the bench there, so we'll find out very shortly. How do you think the state of Idaho is going to spin this narrative, especially out of the gate with opening? Because they don't have Lori Vallow's fingerprints on the murder weapon. They don't have the things that maybe in a lot of murder cases you do see, but they do have a great story.
They have a lot of circumstantial evidence, and I think they're going to maybe press on the conspiracy aspect of it. You know, even there's evidence that this wasn't just her by herself, that there's overwhelming evidence that she conspired with, you know, so-and-so. So I think that's another way you can spin it. Let the jury know, here's the evidence we have against the defendant. And, you know, and then also you need to keep open, you know, consider the fact that she most likely also conspired with, you know, her brother in this case, or Mr. Daybell. So that's another way to go about it. But I think there's just overwhelming evidence against her behavior. Like you said, the fact that she just was, you know, lying to investigators and supporting her husband. So I just think there's a lot going against her right now. But you could come at her with the conspiracy aspect of the case too.
And what about the religious aspect? These two were nuts, by all accounts, in terms of their beliefs that they thought the end of the world was coming. They thought that the people around them were being taken over, and they needed to be disposed of because you need to kill these people to save their... There's a whole thing that Chad had going, and she was right there with him, lockstep. This trial was moved out of Rexburg, Idaho, a huge Mormon population there, to Boise, which is a much larger jury pool. How much of the religious stuff does the state, in your estimation, get into? Because on some level, you want to know why this mom would have anything to do with the death of her kids.
I don't think that's a bigger point. I mean, these are deranged people. You're right, religious ideologies are never a defense in a criminal.
No, I'm not talking defense.
Like
I'm talking about state. The state saying these guys were wingnuts.
Yeah, I think you portray them. Yeah, I think your opening statement just talks about they're going to hide behind this defense. This religious ideology, but it's just obvious that they're deranged. You know, so they're sick. This is an insane belief to believe their kids were possessed by demons and were zombies pretty much. So I think that's the theme of it. These are just deranged, sick, crazy people, and they kill their kids. So I don't think they emphasize too much the religious ideology. I just think it's obvious that these people they're crazy no matter what religion they were in. So that's my position on that.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. That sounds legit. Let's do this. We're going to break. The judge has just asked for the jury meeting. We are just a few minutes away from the beginning of the case against Lori Vallow. We'll be updating throughout the day here. It'll be like we're in the courtroom with our cameras. Well, we are in the courtroom. We just don't have our cameras. Back after this. Stay with us. Joining us this morning, too, is Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez. He is watching along with us. And Gabriel, I'm just going to read a little bit of the prosecution open out of the gate. Money, power, and sex. That is what this case is about. And the defendant, Lori Vallow, used money, power, and sex for the promise of those things to get what she wanted. Prosecutor then goes into talking about the victims. Tylee Ryan, a vibrant young woman, 17 years old, her whole life ahead of her. JJ Vallow, Joshua Jackson Vallow, known as JJ, was just 11 years old. He had lost his father, and when he lost his father, he became much more difficult to care for. We all know that he had some developmental issues. Then the prosecutor talks about Tammy Daybell, a mother of 5, grandmother. She was married to Chad Daybell and left. All of the life insurance was left to them, and Lori basically was behind it all. Tylee was last seen September 18th. He just relocated. Goes on. Basically, Gabriel, out of the gate, it's talking about these victims. And this is the way we expected it, right? Because this is all about the victims, this case. And what's your take on the prosecutor's strategy out of the gate with the opening, talking about the victims and the defendant, saying that this was all about money, power, and sex? No mention of religion.
Yeah, it's a good way to open up. Opening statements and throughout your case strategy really is about what this theme is about. What is this case about? Just like when a movie happens or you're watching a movie, every movie has a theme, every case has a theme. And that's what the prosecutor is putting in the jury said. This is what the case is about: money, power, and sex. Then he goes into outlining why it's about that. So it's a good way to just boil down this case, especially with a bunch of different characters and different evidence and all these things going on. To keep the focus on what this case comes down to. And it's a good way to start an opening statement, and it's a good way to start a story, what the story's about. So I agree.
JJ, oh, sorry to cut you off. Just getting a little bit more here. It's very fascinating. JJ, the prosecutor says to the jury, was last seen September 2nd, 2018 in the defendant's apartment. He was last seen with the defendant's brother. This is Alex Cox, of course. And you'll hear a witness say that he saw that Alex Cox was carrying JJ. And we've heard that in the preliminary hearing. And then the prosecutor goes on to say JJ was not seen again until June 9th, 2020, when he was found on the defendant's property. We keep saying it's Chad's property, but really, it's right. They were married. This was Lori Vallow Daybell's property. And that's how it's framed by the prosecutor here, saying that JJ was found on the defendant's property. He was found with duct tape around his head, arms, taping him into a position with his arms crowded like this, must have demonstrated to the jury. That's how this little boy was found. And he's showing bones and plastic bags. Has to be compelling, Gabriel. A minute before break here, just your thoughts about that, because this was her property.
Yeah. Good point, a very good point. And you want to couch it like that. It's exactly, they were married, that's her property. She's not going to let the defense attorney get away with saying, well, this is actually, the husband's property, not hers. He said, hey, you know what, they're married, this is their property, they're in this together. And I think that was little details they made in their opening statement. Good point to make. And it's just crazy looking at this lady. I mean, it's obvious that this is a deranged and evil person. So yeah, I mean, this is someone that would have a more of an insanity kind of look to it, a better chance at an insanity defense, even though that's hard too. But yeah, right.
It's going to be fascinating as this plays out. We're getting these updates out of the courtroom. Our Chanley Painter's in the courtroom. She's going to be joining us very soon. We need to get a break in here. I want to thank Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez for his time and expertise today. When we come back,